In at number 10, Beyonce.
It's different from being a group as in Destiny's Child.
I'm sorry, but I answered this question already?
Oh, you did? Okay.
Alright.
Beyond the cold looks that she used to give the other ladies in Destiny's Child whenever they were off key, Beyonce has been known to invoke her diva Karen status on more than one occasion. She's avoided eye contact with red carpet assistants, yelled at photographers for not getting her good side, and more recently sparked controversy at the Golden Globes. When it was announced that Joaquin Phoenix had won for Best Actor, everyone stood up, as they should. Everyone from Leonardo DiCaprio to the ever so rude Ellen DeGeneres even. Although Beyonce was noticeably unamused by the announcement and just remained seated. However, Twitter was quick to call her out for this one. One person tweeted, "Sorry, but I don't think this is the type of energy anyone should be praised for. I don't know if there was another reason for her sitting, but the fact that she didn't stand with everyone else, especially during a standing ovation, is rude point blank." No, it's pretty Karen of her. I like that Karen, it can also be like caring. Caring? Karen is just trying to care, you know? In at number 9, Katherine Heigl. Katherine Heigl is the type of celebrity that shows her Karen side at every opportunity, and then when she regrets it, she openly bashes the decisions of those around her. The first case of this was when she co-starred opposite Seth Rogen for the Judd Apatow film called Knocked Up. Seth Rogen said that he was having a great time working with Heigl, and mainly because she was improvising a lot of her own stuff, which was fantastic for the film. However, not too long after that, Katherine Heigl did an interview with Vanity Fair, and she just went full Karen on them. She expressed just how much she hated the movie and then went on to say that it was a little sexist, it paints the women as shrews, as humorless and uptight, and it paints the men as lovable, goofy, fun-loving guys. Well, it was written by those type of guys. She also went on to say that it exaggerated the characters and she had a hard time with it. On some of the days she was playing such a and she was wondering why she was being such a killjoy and why that this was the way that they were portraying women. 98% of the time she said that it was an amazing experience, but overall it was hard for her to love the movie. Well, now Katherine, it's hard for anyone to trust you.
She had some commentary about Knocked Up after it came out.
What'd she say?
She didn't like it.
She didn't like it?
But she was so awesome in it, so it was
Right.
confusing.
In at number 8, Bruce Willis. During a press run for the film Red 2 along with co-star Mary Louise Parker, Bruce was noticeably annoyed that he even had to answer the interviewers' questions. Jamie Edwards from Britain's Magic 105.4 actually called it the most awkward interview that he's ever had. Apparently Bruce was barely present while being interviewed, which led to this super cringy Karen moment.
Has any actor ever told you this, Jamie? This part is not acting, what we're doing right now. You might be, but we're just selling the film now.
When asked which location he preferred while they were filming the movie, Bruce answered with Istanbul. The problem with this answer wasn't his dismissive tone, the problem was that the film never even filmed there. He just said a place that he liked, making that poor reporter's job even more difficult as he tried to maintain his composure. In at number 7, Carrie Underwood. Carrie is a notoriously private person that doesn't resort to acting rude to keep things private, however the worst of the worst interactions have been from the people that had to work with Underwood. In Toronto, Carrie was the headlining act at a major charity event, but when walking down the red carpet, she repeatedly snubbed the event staff. The PR staff is in charge of directing the celebrities down the red carpet so that they don't get caught up with interviews or photo shoots. While one of them was trying to do their job and direct Carrie, she said that Underwood looked at her with disgust as she sized her up and down before walking away. Besides that, there are also her strange attention-grabbing posts. A while back, she had reported that after a bad fall, she needed 40 to 50 stitches in her face and that she would never look the same again. Then she posted a photo shortly after and everyone said, nothing is different, you look exactly the same. So what was that for? Karen, she was being a Karen. In at number 6, Karen West.
The young lady seems like a perfectly nice person. She's getting her award. What's he doing?
Why would he do that?
He's a No, all this stuff.
Now I'm sure the editors had to bleep that little clip that we played for you there, but even President Obama has confirmed just how rude Kanye West is. During a 2009 press interview at the White House, Obama didn't realize that his mic was still on. The interviewer was asking the president how he felt about what Kanye did to Taylor Swift, although he didn't really seem shocked that West could be so rude. Not only did Kanye's famous MTV interruption get more negative press than when he said George Bush hated black people, but he doubled down on his rude behavior. When Trump became president, Kanye continued to treat others horribly. He toted a MAGA hat while also saying that slavery was a choice. On top of his political controversies, the rapper from Chicago has also repeatedly dragged Taylor Swift's name through the mud, even having his wife join in on the gross behavior. 2 Karens in a pod. What's the saying? What's the meme to a group of Karens is called a complaint? So good. I wish. Shout out to whoever wrote that joke. In at number 5, Lea Michele. Lea Michele has been accused by several people for being an absolute nightmare to work with. A Karen, if you will. One of Lea Michele's biggest accusers was Samantha Ware, who appeared on the show Glee in season 6 as the character Jane Hayward. The accusation was that Lea had participated in traumatic microaggressions that made her reconsider her career. This came to light when Lea tweeted about Black Lives Matter following the death of George Floyd. Samantha replied to this tweet saying, "Remember when you made my first television gig a living hell? Cause I'll never forget. I believe you told everyone that if you had the opportunity you would in my wig," amongst other traumatic microaggressions that made me question a career in Hollywood. Lea Michele, who played the character Rachel Berry, apologized for her behavior towards Samantha, but due to this tweet, Lea ended up losing her sponsorship with HelloFresh. Every Karen across the world wept. Not HelloFresh. In at number 4, Ariana Grande. Ariana Grande is a confusing one because at times you feel bad for her, but then she'll just turn around and have a diva moment like that and you just go, damn, that was rude. That was really Karen of you to do. She turned to her red carpet assistant and told her to get out of the way because she was ruining the photos. She also had a run-in with Giuliana Rancic, and according to Giuliana, while interviewing her, Ariana poked her in the side and gestured her to switch positions in front of the camera. When Giuliana didn't know what she meant by this, Ariana leaned in and made it very clear. She said, "I only allow photos to be taken from my left, my good side." Oh, and let's not forget her infamous donut licking scandal, shall we? While at a bakery with some friends, Ariana just licked 2 of the donuts on display, didn't pay for them, didn't even eat them, just laughed and walked away, and then when her order comes out, she does this. In at number 3, Ellen DeGeneres. In 2017, Ellen was beloved by everyone, but some started to view her in a more negative light when she embarrassed one of her audience members while on the show. Ellen had set up a table with cheap gift bags and had her team put in a hidden camera. When one of the guests grabbed an extra bag for a family member that couldn't make it to the taping, Ellen just put her on blast in front of everyone.
My sister couldn't come, so that was her souvenir.
Yeah.
Sorry.
A lot of people's sisters couldn't come.
The worst part is that Ellen embarrassed her in front of the entire audience as well as everyone watching at home, and for many years to come, the millions that watch this clip online. All she could do was laugh along with everyone in this very awkward televised moment. And it's very lazy of Ellen to just embarrass her own audience for a game that everyone saw right through. In at number 2, Rosie O'Donnell. Rosie O'Donnell is a comedian known for crossing the line a few times even when she worked as a host for The View. Unfortunately for Rosie, she never learned how to turn off this rude behavior when it came to her personal life. According to reports, the reason why she was fired from The View was due to multiple people on set saying that she was far too mean to finish the season with. That was in 2007 and meant that she wouldn't even complete the first season of the show. Rosie did eventually return back to the program later on, but promised that she would be a much calmer version. Entertainment Tonight had interviewed some of the staff that work with O'Donnell, and here's what they found. O'Donnell, who has a reputation as a demanding and sometimes abrasive boss, didn't feel like her strengths were being properly used by ABC, according to those close to the 52-year-old comedian. Compounding the problem were tensions with co-host Whoopi Goldberg and behind-the-scenes executive turmoil at The View, which recently shifted to management under ABC News. Rosie, confirmed to be a Karen. I mean, if you really look into it, that's Karen O'Donnell. Oh, the K in this one, you know it stands for Karen. We just didn't know this whole time. Last but certainly not least, at our number 1 spot, J.K. Rowling. The author of Harry Potter will go down as having some of the most savage tweets out there, and she has a strong passion for shutting down trolls. In reply to someone mocking her wealth, J.K. Rowling said, "I'd type a longer retort, but these diamond buttons really hurt my fingers. Although sometimes you could take things a little too far and we lead to this." In response again to another hater who said, "Glad I caught this article on Yahoo, I will now burn your books and movies too," J.K. Rowling replied with, "Well, the fumes from the DVDs might be toxic and I've still got your money, so by all means borrow my lighter." That is an insane thing to say to someone that is just criticizing your work. She also just recently made some very transphobic tweets, and that utterly enraged the internet and completed her Karen persona. In at number 10, Russell Crowe. Back in 2005, Russell Crowe was in Australia to promote a film that he had coming out. Shortly after 4 o'clock in the morning, Russell was having a difficult time trying to call his wife, so with his room phone not working, he went down to his concierge to use theirs. Crowe then got into an argument with the concierge, which led to him picking up the desk phone and throwing it out of anger and frustration. Unfortunately, in the process of doing this, the phone actually struck the hotel worker in in the face. He was then arraigned on charges of second-degree assault and fourth-degree criminal possession of a weapon, which, by the way, was the phone that he had thrown at him. The Oscar winner then pled guilty, and the judge gave him a conditional discharge, which essentially means that he can't be arrested in Australia again, or ever act like a Karen again. In at number 9, Kylie Jenner. Because the Kardashians have been on television for so long, they naturally have become big-time celebrities. While that and some work of their own, of course, has moved them to a spot in Hollywood where they are simply famous for being themselves. Kylie Jenner is typically the more business-savvy of the family and has proved herself by making big profits and thus garnering much more attention. While stepping out for dinner with some friends at Craig's in West Hollywood, a tween got a little too close for Kylie's liking and she lost her cool big time. Well, she went full Karen.
Hey Kylie, please, Kylie. The possibility of Kylie being on a
In all fairness, it would be pretty annoying to have someone pulling on your clothes to get your attention, especially while there are dozens of cameras already snapping and other people are yelling questions at you. But being a celebrity is not natural, and for one human to have this much attention on them is just insane. You can clearly see Kylie was fed up with it all, and in that moment she just let her cool slip and let her inner Karen come out. In at number 8, Hugh Grant. While some accents may sound charming, Hugh Grant's personality canceled out any of that for Jon Stewart at The Daily Show. After appearing on the show, Jon Stewart said that he was banning Grant for being a big pain in the ass. Stewart continued saying that he would never grant him back on the show, pun intended. During an onstage Q&A, Jon remarked that they've had dictators on the show, but Hugh Grant was still his least favorite guest. Apparently, Hugh spent most of the day just complaining that he had to be there, and even flat out saying that he had better things to do, for which the staff of The Daily Show didn't really care to hear, nor did Stewart. So thanks to his high maintenance attitude, he was banned from the show with zero apologies. And a new sign was put up that said, "No Karens allowed." In at number 7, Quentin Tarantino.
It's not my job to flesh it out.
No, it's my job to try and ask you to.
And I'm shutting your butt down.
And that's entirely your
This is a commercial
right.
from my movie.
What a line. I mean, I'm shutting your butt down? Quentin Tarantino was having none of this interviewer's questions, but still tried to go along. He kept his cool for, about 3 minutes before the gloves finally came off. This journalist in particular has become notorious for asking celebrities the most awkward and really big questions about themselves, their past, and their work. Stuff that should be better suited for, a 3-hour podcast or an episode of 60 Minutes. However, during these press junkets where they are only doing the interview to sell their film, it's hardly the place or the time. Although, that being said, the onus is on the professional. It's Quentin's job to sell his film during these press meetings, and acting annoyed like a Karen doesn't make anyone's life easier. In fact, he just comes off as a little agitated and in need of a Pinot Grigio nap. In at number 6, Jesse Eisenberg.
Do you know the comedian Carrot Top?
Yes, horrible.
Well, you were like the Carrot Top of interviewers.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. No, and it's a good thing. It's
I'm
a
gonna
good
go
thing.
cry now.
While promoting the film Now You See Me, Jesse Eisenberg just could not contain his utter disdain for this interview. Right out of the gate, he was just on the offensive. The interviewer refers to Morgan Freeman as simply Freeman, for which Jesse for some reason takes offense to. He then, as you saw, remarks that she's the Carrot Top of interviewing, which insults the interviewer so bad that she just hurries Jesse to complete a magic trick so that they can just wrap up. The entire interview is one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever seen, and this is only number 6 on the list. Trust me though, if you haven't watched this full interview, you must. It is just a terrible exchange back and forth between an actor and a vlogger. In at number 5, Vanilla Ice. Way back in 1999, before Jon Stewart was the host of The Daily Show, he was hosting a program on the set of MTV called MTV's Lane 25. On the show, the host would typically make fun of different music videos that had already aired on MTV, and then they would destroy the tape. On one episode in particular though, rapper Vanilla Ice came in at number 9 with the song Ice Ice Baby. The rapper was in the studio at the time of the criticisms, and he had planned to take to the set with a baseball bat to break his tape for his own song, as per MTV's request. However, things didn't exactly go as planned. The jokes and comments must have really started to bug Vanilla Ice because he didn't just break the tape. Vanilla Ice took that baseball bat to the entire set, smashing everything and scaring everyone in the process. Luckily, he was able to bounce back from this by reinventing himself as a DIY superstar on different home improvement networks. However, I would love to see an episode where they have him come back in and rebuild this set that he's destroyed, because I think that would be a perfect way to get rid of his Karen status, because right now that story's making him look a little bit like a Karen. In at number 4, Robert Downey Jr.
Or whether that's still something you...
I really don't. What are we doing?
Well, I'm just asking questions, that's all. I mean...
Bye. Thank you guys.
This guy again. Didn't I tell you folks earlier that he was known for just having the worst interviews ever? This guy should be questioning politicians, not actors, about their upcoming movies. He just goes way too deep with Robert Downey Jr. here in this interview, to the point where RDJ just says, you know what, we're done here. That slapped so hard it felt like a movie. When you watch it, you're like, is there a director making this happen? And speaking of slaps, when Downey stands up to leave, he gives Christian a very hard pat on the shoulder, as if to say, good work, you dummy. The reason why he got so upset was because these questions virtually came out of left field. He went from asking him about superhero movies to Robert's, let's say, tumultuous past. Although much like I mentioned in the point with Quentin Tarantino, Downey has a job to do. You can't just act like a Karen every time an interviewer asks you a question that you don't like. In at number 3, Alec Baldwin. Yes, that is just the end bit of a string of harassing voicemails that Alec Baldwin would leave his daughter. More concerning is that she was only 12 years old at the time. He actually called her a rude, thoughtless little pig. Why, you ask? Well, because she forgot to take his call at the time that they had agreed upon. Pretty Karen way to react though, if you ask me. Look, I get it if you're concerned for her safety and that's why you need the calls to check in, but she's 12. You don't scream at a kid like that. You shouldn't scream at anyone like that. Alec took a ton of heat for this, to the point where he even contemplated suicide. Instead, he wrote a book called A Promise to Ourselves: A Journey Through Fatherhood and Divorce. And that book detailed his long divorce that involved 90 court proceedings and $3 million in legal fees, as well as the alienation that he felt from his daughter after everything that had happened. Luckily, years later, his daughter Ireland was able to roast her dad on Comedy Central, so she had to get him back a little bit.
Hi, Dad. I'm Ireland.
In at number 2, Christian Bale.
No! Don't shut me up! Am I gonna walk around and rip your lights down in the middle of a scene? Then why the are you walking right through?
When this tape leaked, Christian Bale not only had to go on a press tour for his new movie, but an apology tour as well. That Christian Bale rant had so many expletives in it, I was almost certain that we weren't going to be able to use the clip. While filming The Terminator Salvation, a crew member had accidentally walked onto the set, interrupting Bale while he was acting. This sent the celebrity into a downward spiral of anger where the F word suddenly became punctuation for his sentences. He nearly stopped all production on the movie just so that he could release his frustrations on the hard-working film crew. We get that some acting requires intense focus, but regardless, if someone breaks that focus, that doesn't give the actor license to scream at other people, which is the message of this whole video.
There's really nothing I can say about that I haven't said already, and you know, I have never tried to make any excuses for it. It was unacceptable, and I take it.
Coming in at our number 1 spot, Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld is one of the most successful comedians of all time. His show Seinfeld was on television for 9 years, and Jerry's decision to go out on top proved to be one of the most lucrative deals ever for the comedian. Since the final episode, the show has generated over $3 billion in repeat fees, but for whatever reason, Larry King thought that they canceled the show. Even though Larry King worked for CNN, he wasn't known for his hard-hitting questions. Yet for whatever reason, he decided to use an interview promoting Jerry's B-movie to ask him if Seinfeld had been canceled.
You think I got canceled? Are you under the impression that I got canceled?
Have I hurt you, Jerry?
I thought that was pretty well documented. Is this still CNN?
Don't.
That was the #1 show on television.
And you can see in Seinfeld's body language just how frustrated he gets when Larry even tries to insinuate this. Jerry does not back down though and immediately goes on the attack, telling King that he was the #1 show on television before adding the very crass line of, "Do you know who I am?" That's my best Jerry Seinfeld impression. Do you know who I am? What's the deal with you not knowing who I am?
At number 10, Jennifer Lopez. This probably doesn't come as a shock to many, but it turns out that J-Lo isn't very nice. A lot of people have said that she's a real diva, and others say that she's just plain rude, and she's done a number of things that have rubbed people the wrong way. Apparently the singer/actress is very picky about who may or may not speak to her, and for those permitted to address her, they're not allowed to make eye contact. There have even been reports that she flat out refuses to comply with scripts. This has happened on a few occasions, most notably during filming for a Fiat commercial where they needed to hire a double for Jennifer simply because she just didn't want to do certain things for the shoot. On top of that, she doesn't have a good reputation with a lot of people who's worked with her either. She's said to have completely ignored the people who are remodeling her house. She's gotten a cleaning lady fired for having asked for an autograph, and she even refuses to talk to in-flight staff and pilots on flights and instructs her assistant to talk to them for her. And to make matters worse, even though her staff do so much for her, including communicating for her, they don't get paid very much for their time. Even though she may seem super cool on the surface, she's a little sour in real life. At number 9, Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey isn't the nicest person ever. She's had several run-ins with the paparazzi which have not gone over well, she's had some pretty bad relationships with others, and she's known for being a complete and utter diva. But there's one incident in particular that really just exposes how mean Mariah can be. There was a lawsuit from one of Mariah's former assistants which accused her of a number of horrible things. The former assistant alleged that the singer peed on her, ridiculed her body, and called her a handful of pretty rude names. Her former assistant said that she was hired by the singer to be on call 24/7 and assisted both Mariah and her manager at the time. Though she was paid a salary of $250,000 a year, this wage couldn't cover up the horrible things that she was put through by Mariah. But her case wasn't the only one up against the singer at the time. While this case was being disputed, Mariah had just settled one with her former manager who cited breach of contract, harassment, and unpaid wages. Just because you pay people a lot of money doesn't mean you get to treat them like trash. Now before I carry on with the list, I would like to take a moment to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, because your likes really help to support the channel and we love to see it. At number 8, Gwyneth Paltrow. A lot of people seem to really dislike Gwyneth Paltrow for some reason. Though she's never really done anything horrible to people directly, it is alleged that she's so disliked in Hollywood because she comes off as pretty pretentious, egotistical, and privileged. People don't really see Gwyneth as the average person or as someone that they can relate to, which a lot of people seem to find off-putting. The Goop founder seems to like flaunting her wealth and materialistic things and makes it seem like it's something that everyone else has or can afford. For example, her Goop website's list of must-have clothing pieces and other things include things that cost hundreds if not thousands of dollars, which not a lot of people can relate to having. On top of that, she came from a wealthy family, so being someone who's always been rich, she doesn't really know how to humble herself around those who haven't been as fortunate as her. People also don't like how she comes across as self-centered, as she seems to always talk about herself and how fit she is and how great her lifestyle is. She also has a diva attitude. She's been known to slam Michelin star restaurants, and if you know what that means, then you know she's got an attitude to do something like that. And to make matters worse, she's been known to demand that people clean and dry the shower at the gym after someone's used it because she, quote, can't touch somebody else's shower water. Yeah. She just has a lot of diva energy and can come across as quite rude, so I can understand why not everyone wants to be her friend. At number 7, James Corden. A lot of people don't like James Corden. Celebrities and regular old Joes like you and me just can't seem to get along with the late night host, and there's a few reasons for this. Turns out that he's actually pretty mean in real life, and this persona that you see on TV is all just an elaborate ruse. In reality, James is arrogant, rude, and a huge diva. There are a bunch of stories that paint James as a mean person. Firstly, he was once part of a group of people who advocated for paying late night writers less money. Yeah, you heard that right. He's also been known to use a good old "do you know who I am" line quite a number of times, and he's even reportedly told someone that he could buy them if they didn't do what he wanted. There's a lot of problematic energy to unpack there, but that is a whole other video. On top of that, there's been incidents of fans catching James being mean to his wife and letting his temper get the best of him at times. A lot of people say that he only acts nice in order to butt kiss his way to the top, and he doesn't care who he takes down in the process. But I think people are starting to catch on to this ruse because more and more people are starting to dislike him. Just ask Twitter. At number 6, Amy Schumer. It seems like Amy Schumer doesn't really care about what people think of her. In a way, that can be a good thing because you learn to live your life for yourself, but it can also give you an attitude and prevent you from thinking about your actions and how they can impact others. An example of this comes from an incident from back in 2018 where Amy full-on stole a comedian's stand-up set. Amy was at a comedy club and up on stage, and an up-and-coming comedian was doing one of his first long sets, and obviously this was a pretty big deal for the guy until Amy ruined it. She walked into the venue and went to the manager to ask if she could steal 10 minutes of stage time because she wanted to practice her new set. Because the other comedian just started on stage, the manager said no, so Amy hit back with the "but I'm Amy Schumer." Like that's really gonna do something. After getting refusals left and right, she decided to take matters into her own hands and marched up on the stage and just took over his time for a few minutes. I know Amy is a big timer, but come on, you have to remember what it was like to be up and coming, and that kind of behavior is just rude. At number 5, Katherine Heigl. A lot of people don't like Katherine Heigl because of how rude she is. She's known in the film industry for being pretty mean and having a diva attitude. She's allegedly mean to people on set, has high demands, and just has a very bad overall attitude. She's known to be quite critical of her roles and the material that she's given to work with, and she even said this when she withdrew from the Emmy nominations because she said that the material she was given for Grey's Anatomy didn't warrant an Emmy. That is certainly disrespectful to the writers, because for someone to say something like that implies that the writing wasn't good enough to please people, whereas the people at the Emmys thought it was worth an award. And on top of that, winning this kind of award looks good for the team, but Katherine obviously didn't think of that. She only thought about herself. The actress is known to make ridiculously high salary demands, and she's apparently been doing this since before she became a big name in the industry. She's reportedly hired and fired a lot of publicists and assistants over the years, so she really sounds like quite the diva and a horrible boss too. Because of all this, directors and Hollywood execs just don't want to work with her anymore, and honestly, I can't really say that I blame them. At number 4, Michael Phelps. Olympic swimmer Michael Phelps is often referred to as the best swimmer of all time, but it seems like his aquatic skills are really the only thing he's got going for him, since apparently he's got a pretty bad attitude and is pretty rude in real life. Michael has done some bad stuff in his life, so people already don't think that highly of him as an individual. Back in 2014, he was arrested for driving under the influence, and speaking of under the influence, Phelps has also been caught with drugs before. Already, this isn't good for his image because being an Olympian, people have a lot of eyes on you. Phelps was reprimanded for his drunk driving and was suspended from swimming for 6 months, but other than that, this scandal was kept pretty under wraps. Now if only they could have put that much energy into Sha'Carri Richardson. On top of this swimmer being a felon, he's also known to not be a team player. Apparently he hides himself away from his other teammates when at competitions like the Olympics instead of being with his team to support them. You would think that being at something like the Olympics, you would want to soak up all that team spirit, but no. Michael wants nothing to do with his team and instead flies solo. Kind of mean if you ask me. At number 3, Jared Leto. You may like Jared Leto on screen, but off screen he's kind of a jerk. There's even a list online that tallies up all the reasons that make him a bad person. And if something like that exists, then you know something's up. Some of the reasons listed as to why Jared sucks so much include the fact that he's been caught being mean to fans, he's rude to reporters during interviews, and he's offended the trans community after winning an Oscar for his performance in Dallas Buyers Club and not mentioning the trans community in his speech, as well as undermining the struggles of the trans community after joking about his appearance in character. Jared has also admitted to lying during interviews whenever possible for absolutely no reason, and people found his Joker antics on the set of Suicide Squad to be a little mean because of the pranks that he would play on people as well as the gifts that he would send to the cast and crew. Most of the allegations against Jared and his attitude are pretty minor, but add them all up and you get someone that you might not necessarily enjoy having around. But what do you guys think? You still want to be his friend? At number 2, Christina Aguilera. Christina Aguilera may have the voice of an angel, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she is one. Turns out she has a bit of a dark side, and a handful of people have experienced it. Other than being shady at Lady Gaga during their 2008 feud, where she called her some unpleasant names and said, quote, "I'm not quite sure who this person is, to be honest, I don't know if it's a man or a woman," end quote. She's also had some other rude encounters with more of her peers. When working on the set of her various gigs, she's reportedly always late, holds up production, and never apologizes for delaying production. She also reportedly has some beef with Adam Levine while working on The Voice, and they would bicker constantly. Christina is also known to be an absolute diva, and working with her seems to be a nightmare because sources say that she's very rude and demanding of her household staff and treats her staff poorly, insisting that they are on call 24/7. Christina also has had feuds with Pink, Mariah Carey, and even got mad at Mickey Mouse once. Yeah, she got into a heated argument with Mickey Mouse when she was at Disneyland in 2014 for her birthday. She wanted to take a picture with the mouse, but he was going on break, so instead of being an understanding person, she pulled the "Do you know who I am" card. I mean, how can you do that to Mickey? What did Mickey do? And finally, at number 1, Bruce Willis. Actor Bruce Willis has had a great career making great movies and basking in fame, but it seems as though he's not all that great in real life. Apparently, Bruce is a nightmare to work with as he's gotten into a number of conflicts with others on set, and people just really hate working with him. Before Die Hard launched his film career, he was brought into stardom after working on the show Moonlighting alongside his co-star Sybil Shepherd. Back in 2005, Shepherd told sources that there came a point where her relationship with Bruce became really toxic and they clashed a lot on set. There was reportedly constant bickering and it was just a really bad working environment. But of course, Sybil isn't the only one to have clashed with Bruce while working together. Filmmaker Kevin Smith has also had his troubles working with Bruce while filming the 2010 film Cop Out. He told sources that though he once saw Bruce as his hero in past productions, that opinion completely went out the window, saying that working with Bruce was difficult. When speaking out about their time together on set, Kevin said, quote, "He turned out to be the unhappiest, most bitter, and meanest emo B-word I've ever met at any job I've held down, and mind you, I worked at Domino's Pizza. What an awful experience." End quote. Now I just wonder if something triggers this horrible behavior or if he's just always like this.
In at number 10, culturally insensitive. Jennifer got into a massive scandal after she admitted to being insensitive to the Hawaiian culture. Basically, Jen was filming the Hunger Games in Hawaii, and in the movie she wears wetsuits a lot, which can get pretty itchy. So in 2016 on the Graham Norton show, she admitted that she'd scratched her butt on some sacred ceremonial rocks while filming in Hawaii. She said, quote, "There were sacred rocks. I don't know, they were ancestors, who knows? They were sacred, and you're not supposed to sit on them because you're not supposed to expose your genitalia to them. I, however, was in a wetsuit for this whole shoot. Oh my god, they were so good for butt itching." Apparently, she moved the rock so much at one point one came loose and started a landslide. The Hawaiian people thought it was a sign of a curse, but it was just Jen being disrespectful. She tried to be funny and relatable while telling the story and didn't think she would get in any trouble, but people were angry at how nonchalantly she admitted to disrespecting Hawaii. After the backlash, she posted an apology to Facebook, but many didn't buy it. And at number 9, weight insensitivity. One thing many fans know about Jen is that she speaks off the cuff and rarely filters out what she says, which can cause a lot of funny moments as well as a lot of insensitive ones. One thing she gets steady backlash about is her comments about her own weight. Jen has been open about the toxicity of weight in Hollywood and says that she was often asked to lose weight before movies. Because of this, she's been quoted saying, quote, "In Hollywood, I'm obese. I'm considered a fat actress. I'm Val Kilmer in that one picture on the beach." Another quote said, quote, "I eat like a caveman. I'll be the only actress that doesn't have anorexia rumors." Many people take these comments to be body positive, and although we love that she won't lose weight for movies, she's also already pretty slender, so giving the middle finger to the man here is a lot easier for her. And when someone the size of Jen calls herself fat, that makes anyone larger than her feel even more insecure about their own weight. Like if Jen calls herself overweight, literally what am I? I know it's all jokes, but the self-deprecation can seem pretty insincere at times. And at number 8, biphobic comments. Another thing that's gotten Jen heat in the press has been some biphobic comments that she made about one of the characters she played. She played X-Men character Mystique in the movie franchise, and was shocked to learn that the character was actually bisexual. When speaking about the character's sexuality, she said, quote, "She has kids, she has night crawlers, and she sleeps with Magneto. Unless I'm completely wrong, I mean, she's 100 years old, she definitely had time for a lesbian phase." And obviously that phrase is gonna anger a lot of people in the community who've been working hard to break those stigmas, especially because bisexuality is not a phase. Jen also called her own style at one point, quote, "slutty power lesbian," because she had a pixie haircut, which is just wrong on so many levels. And at number 7, trash reporter. Jennifer Lawrence got massive backlash after she was rude to a reporter at the 2016 Golden Globes. After she accepted the award, she was in the press room answering questions from tons of reporters. At one point, a Spanish reporter who was speaking with an accent started asking a question, but he was looking at his phone the whole time. Jennifer tried to joke around by telling the reporter to put down his phone if he wanted to ask her questions. She also mocked him after he mistook the event for the Oscars. However, it was pretty obvious that he was just reading his questions off his phone, which is pretty common for reporters these days. After her rude comments, hate flooded in against the star. People also gave the perspective that the reporter may have been translating his questions into English, that's why he was staring at his phone. It also just rubbed people the wrong way that she assumed that everyone speaks English. And at number 6, paparazzi. Like many other celebrities in Hollywood, Jennifer Lawrence hates paparazzi. But really, I mean, who can blame her? And she makes a point to bring up her disdain for paparazzi whenever possible. Like in one interview with Vogue, where she said, quote, "If I were just your average 23-year-old girl and I called the police to say that there were strange men sleeping on my lawn and following me to Starbucks, they would leap into action. But because I'm a famous person, well sorry ma'am, there's nothing we can do. It makes no sense. Jen has also talked about how she doesn't like fame and how fan interactions make her really uncomfortable. So that's obviously a big part of the reason that she maintains such a low profile most of the time. Halfway at number 5, Lindsay Lohan. Jennifer Lawrence has poked fun at many fellow celebrities over the years, but none was worse than when she made some nasty comments about Lindsay Lohan. While Jennifer Lawrence was on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert in 2015, Lawrence offended Lindsay Lohan and her family. It started when Lawrence was talking about how she got a stomach virus while filming, but she still kept shooting. Then she made the comment, quote, "I get like Lindsay Lohan grade exhaustion, but without any drugs or alcohol." And obviously those kinds of words will start a fight with anybody. Almost right after the show aired, Lohan's younger sister, Aliana, tweeted out, quote, "I never breathe life into negativity, but I stand by my family. Disappointed in Jennifer Lawrence, not cool." Lindsay Lohan then replied to the tweet saying, quote, "Thank you sister. Maybe who you're referring to should learn to support others like Maya Angelou." Lohan's mom also commented on the incident weeks later, so it's safe to say Lohan's family and fans hate Jennifer Lawrence. And at number 4, Lala Kent. This is another example of Jen talking trash about a fellow celebrity and then getting called out. While Jen was on an episode of Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, she decided to take aim at Vanderpump Rules star Lala Kent. It started when Andy was asking Jennifer what she thought of the cast of Vanderpump Rules. When the conversation went to Lala, Lawrence straight up called her the C word, along with tons of other digs at her. As a response, Lala tweeted out, quote, "Did Jennifer Lawrence really call me the C word on Watch What Happens Live and talk about my mama? B, you better pray I don't see you in the streets." And that was just the first of a long string of now deleted tweets. The shade didn't stop there. Lala went on the Juicy Scoop podcast and called out Jennifer further. She said that Lawrence had, quote, 2 failed films in a row, and said that she was the type of girl that would sleep with Harvey Weinstein for a role. Lawrence never responded to any of the shade, probably because she knew she was in the wrong. And at number 3, Jennifer Lopez. I wouldn't classify this one as rude as much as just proving that Jennifer Lawrence can be very over dramatic. The feud started when Lawrence was on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and Lawrence shared a story from the Met Ball. Apparently Jennifer Lawrence and Jimmy Kimmel were very drunk and wanted to ask J-Lo to dance. Apparently they went over to her and she turned them down, with Lopez saying she just wanted to observe. And even though the story was lighthearted, it still made J-Lo look kinda bad for saying no. So J-Lo decided to set the record straight, and she actually came up with her version of events. She told Access Hollywood, quote, "I remember that we were at the Met Ball and Kanye was about to perform and it was like a crazy moment. And then they came over and they were like, let's go dance, and I was like, no, I'm good right here. But I didn't mean it like I don't want to dance with you, I just meant it like it's so crowded in here, let's just stay right here." So she basically called out J-Lo on TV for no reason. And at number 2, rude to fans. Probably one of the most bizarre things about Jennifer Lawrence is that she's admitted that she hates speaking to fans. It's so bad that she's decided to be really rude to fans so they leave her alone. Interesting strategy. When speaking with Adam Sandler, she told him, quote, "Generally once I enter a public place, I become incredibly rude. I turn into a huge a-hole." She then continued that it's her way of defending herself, and that she acts like this to make sure nobody crosses any boundaries. And just to contrast how terrible Jen sounded here, Adam Sandler said he makes a point to be really nice to his fans, saying, quote, "My life's nearing the end. I want to meet as many people as I can." And finally, number 1, hurricane. Jennifer Lawrence has become increasingly more political over the years, and she was frequently critical of Donald Trump during his presidency. However, she got some heat after she made some comments about hurricanes. From the quotes that were taken, it seemed like Jennifer Lawrence was blaming the influx of hurricanes on Trump's win, saying that Mother Nature was raging. She was harshly criticized for the comments, so she posted a statement about the incident on her Facebook page. She wrote in part, quote, "My remarks were taken grossly out of context. Obviously, I never claimed that President Trump was responsible for these tragic hurricanes. That is a silly and preposterous headline that is unfortunate, because it detracts from the millions of lives that are being impacted by these devastating storms and the recent earthquakes."
At number 10, Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf is sorta known around Hollywood for his attitude. He's had quite a few outbursts in his day, but I'm going to tell you about one restaurant freakout that was just so uncalled for and really disrespectful. Back in 2017, Shia had a bit of a meltdown at a bowling alley restaurant, and I'm guessing it was all chalked up to him being hangry or something, because Shia flipped out at staff members over some french fries. While at the restaurant in the bowling alley, he went up to order some french fries, and when he was refused, probably because of how rude and aggressive he was being, things got out of hand pretty quickly. In a video captured of the incident, you see Shia behind the bar yelling at at one of the staff members about his french fries. The bartender was feeling so threatened by Shy's behavior that he was holding a large bottle of Grey Goose vodka as a sort of defensive tactic. It looked like he was ready to smack the actor with the bottle if he got too close, you know? And it even took him to the point of angrily yelling that the bartender was, quote, an effing racist. After being escorted from the premises, Shy kept saying that they effed up and demanded that someone called the police, even though it was definitely unnecessary. There are those who were there that night who said that the actor was drinking a lot that night and that his outburst was probably fueled by his alcoholism, something that the actor has been dealing with. He was very rude and aggressive towards the people in the establishment, and it probably left people with a very different view of the actor. At number 9, Stuart Rahr. Billionaire and philanthropist Stuart Rahr is no longer welcome at a popular restaurant thanks to his poor behavior. After throwing a tantrum at Midtown's Nobu 57 back in 2012, Stuart Rahr is no longer welcome at that location nor any other Nobu restaurants because of how rude and disruptive he was towards staff and other guests. It was reported that Rahr made quite a scene after not being seated at his favorite table. I mean, there were plenty of other tables to sit at, but this was his table, and those other tables just wouldn't do. According to sources, the billionaire was even caught trying to bribe guests by paying for their meal, which could have cost upwards of $1,000 in order to secure his favorite spot, and when he got caught, he fired back at a manager using some pretty colorful language. According to restaurant staff, he arrived late at the restaurant, and upon his arrival, he marched up to the table and demanded that the people sitting there leave because it was his spot. But the drama just doesn't end there though. He then sent an all-caps email which included some pretty harsh language to the restaurant executives and added several A-list celebrities to the thread. And then he went back to the restaurant to harass the staff even more. In the end, he ended up getting banned for life, and no one was quick to forget how rude he was that day. At number 8, Ruby Rose. Now, one person that you don't normally think of as rude is model and actress Ruby Rose, but apparently she can be quite rude and disruptive at dining establishments. Back in 2016, Ruby Rose apparently caused such a ruckus at a restaurant that the restaurant's owner had to kick her out. While dining at the Rebellion Bar and Urban Kitchen, Ruby was really rude to one of the restaurant servers and threw a bit of a tantrum. She even threw french fries at the staff member. Ruby had a bit of a Karen moment that day because she was upset about how long she had been waiting for her meal. According to Ruby, she had been waiting in the restaurant for over 90 minutes for her food, which would already anger someone, but to make matters worse, she was also allegedly being egged on by the bartender. The bartender was allegedly mocking and making fun of Ruby for refusing drinks, and they even made fun of her sobriety. So between the rude bartender and the long wait, Ruby just lost her patience and got really mad. She lost her cool and threw some food around, so maybe her anger was a little warranted because of how she was treated by the bartender, but throwing things at staff was a little extreme and very rude. What do you guys think? Was her outburst uncalled for, or would you react in a similar way? At number 7, Usher. I didn't really think singer Usher was one of those stuck-up Hollywood types, but apparently he is. According to a service worker who's waited on Usher on many occasions, he's known to walk into restaurants and other establishments with the intention of being waited on hand and foot. And not just even for himself, but for his entourage as well. I mean, there's nothing wrong with expecting quality service, but sometimes that mindset can go a little too far. Even though he expects the best service money can buy, it turns out that he has no intention of buying, as he's known to skip out on paying the bill by either leaving before the bill is given or making someone else pay for it. He's also one of those celebrities who's pulled the "do you know who I am" card, as he's used that as an excuse to get out of being carded when ordering an alcoholic beverage. On top of that, he's known to be a pretty lousy tipper, either tipping nothing or tipping with a signed CD or photo. He might make good music, but he makes for a horrible dining room guest. At number 6, Tommy Lee. Back in 2019, musician Tommy Lee and his wife were thrown out of a high-end restaurant in New Orleans after being unruly and rude with staff members. According to sources from TMZ, the couple were looking to dine at Emeril Lagasse's restaurant when the couple got into an altercation with staff members. Tommy and his wife entered the restaurant wearing hats, and according to the restaurant's dress code, they aren't allowed to wear them, so they were simply asked to take the hats off. This is when things took a turn, as Tommy got very upset with this rule and threw some colorful language about. He eventually moved his hat as they were seated at their table, but things escalated even further. The couple were then confronted about their use of profanity in the restaurant because it was rude, and staff members demanded that they take accountability for their actions. This made Tommy even more frustrated with the staff, and after a long spew of profanities, the restaurant's employees were forced to remove the pair from the premises. They eventually found somewhere else to go, but their rudeness was certainly uncalled for. All that was asked of them was to simply follow the restaurant restaurant's dress code. At number 5, Ariana Grande. One celebrity that you don't often see getting into conflicts is Ariana Grande. For the most part, the singer keeps to herself and doesn't really cause much high-profile drama, but she has had her moments in the past, and one in particular that was very rude. Ariana was caught in a scandal in 2015 after being exposed for her behavior while visiting a bakery in California. Though it may not be technically a traditional restaurant, it's still an eating establishment, so it counts. Surveillance cameras in the donut shop caught the singer licking donuts while the employees weren't looking, and even caught her yelling about her distaste for America's eating habits. The footage was leaked and shared by TMZ, and after the footage went viral, the owner of the donut shop spoke out about Ariana and that she was also caught spitting on some of the donuts as well, and said that she was reportedly very rude to staff working there, demanding that the person helping her keep bringing out the pastries that the other employees were baking. As if that was all, the shop's owner also said that the donuts that were defiled by Ariana were unknowingly sold to other customers that day. So not only did she disrespect the staff and their baked goods, but also the other customers, though they might not have known it. At number 4, Kit Harington. Though he played a noble man of the Night's Watch on Game of Thrones, actor Kit Harington was less than chivalrous at a bar in NYC, resulting in him having to be removed from the establishment by staff members. According to a report from TMZ in 2018, the King of the North was having a night out at a bar playing pool and drinking to excess and being quite rude to people. During one of his pool matches, it is said that the actor got very unruly and belligerent and was asked to leave the premises, which he did. But a little while later, he came back to the establishment, and at that point, he had to be forcibly removed from the bar. Kit was apparently being rude and disrespectful to those working there as well as other patrons, as his drunken state caused him to act on some less than kind impulses. Since this accident, Kit has come out to address his excessive drinking, saying that he was having a hard time coping with the end of Game of Thrones. After filming wrapped on the HBO show, Kit actually checked himself into rehab for his own well-being and sought out therapy to help him cope with his evolving career. It's good to know that this event caused him to take a step back and reevaluate his choices, but people probably still saw him as another rude celebrity star in that moment. At number 3, Britney Spears. Looking back on it now, this isn't something that should have been made fun of in the media, but back in 2007, during her public fall from grace, Britney Spears was berated by the public after she put on quite a spectacle while dining at the Chateau Marmont. Britney was seen as a rude and unruly guest, as diners were shocked to see Britney smearing her face with gourmet food in a show of inappropriate behavior. As a result, she was removed from the premises and subsequently banned from the restaurant. People who witnessed Britney's behavior said that they wouldn't even expect this kind of behavior from a teenager, calling Britney's display childish and uncalled for, and even added that royalty had dined at the Chateau Marmont, saying that her behavior was absolutely unacceptable. Apparently, when Britney arrived at the hotel, she looked out of it, but of course, instead of helping her, everyone just watched the spectacle and laughed when she was berated in the media because of it. On top of all the other names Britney was being called at the time, rude became a new way to describe the struggling pop star. At number 2, Lea Michele. I think we all know by now that Lea Michele is a rude celebrity. We learned this last year when she was exposed by countless co-workers for her horrible on-set behavior, but she's also been exposed by restaurant staff for being a rude guest. One waiter's horror story of serving the actress tells us that she was once continuously harassing them while helping her order, while she made fun of them while they were trying to explain the dish's ingredients. Lea apparently insisted that she didn't understand what the waiter was saying, and then went on to complain to several of the restaurant's managers and higher-ups. To make matters more Karen-y, Lea also apparently sent her father to go knock on the kitchen window to berate the cooks 20 minutes after they ordered, demanding that they receive their food because they had been waiting for, quote, hours. This rude behavior doesn't really surprise me coming from Lea, because after hearing her former co-workers' horror stories, I now realize that with Lea, anything is possible. And finally, at number 1, Kendall Jenner. Being that she is a member of the Jenner family, rude behavior doesn't really surprise me. Back in 2014, a story broke about how Kendall had been allegedly very rude at a restaurant, ending with her throwing money at a staff member. The story here goes that she and Alec Baldwin was dining at a restaurant together when they allegedly left without paying for their meal. Their bill came up to about $60, so it wasn't really that much, but it still doesn't mean that you can get away with not paying for it. A staff member then chased after the pair as they walked away from the restaurant, and when they were stopped and asked to pay for their meal, Kendall allegedly pulled out a couple of $20 bills from her bag and threw it at the staff member. That was seriously rude and certainly uncalled for.